FCRB, we're in deeper conversations with them because in some cases we have 3 questions we've been asking, and we met as early as Wednesday afternoon, to dialogue about this and develop action plans. So specific to FCRB, with the statute change last year, we created an automated information exchange which complements the disclosure process we already had. So we had a disclosure process where we would copy them as we disclosed information to the court. We would copy FCRB so they would get specific documents that they needed to be successful.
I'm Caroline Loudowens. I'm the director for the Dependent Children Services Division at the Administrative Office of the Courts. And my division oversees several programs, including the Foster Care Review Board, or FCRB. And the FCRB is charged with reviewing cases of children who have been removed from home every 6 months. And they do that via very trained volunteers who get documents or should be obtaining documents. Our staff actually obtain documents from DCS, provide them to the board members. Each board has 5 board members. They get that information, they review that information prior to review, and then they spend 1 day a month with us holding reviews of the cases and the children. They invite interested parties to attend the review, so they have DCS at the table, biological parents, foster parents, the children if they're 12 years and over, and the board then has the opportunity to speak with all of those interested parties and ask them questions about the documentation that they've reviewed and also the statements that all of the parties have been able to make during the review. With me today is Lori Dennison. She's our FCRB program manager, and Bruce Brannon. He is a FCRB volunteer board member. He's been with us since the inception of the program over 40 years ago. And we're happy to answer any questions that you might have regarding the difficulties that we've had with Guardian, both from the program perspective as well as from the volunteer perspective. To answer your question, no. The FCRB has not received what it needs.
Copy FCRB so they would get specific documents that they needed to be successful.
The system doesn't work. So we have gotten some documentation, not much. We get duplicate information. We get, there's children who've been removed who are not on the list. There's just numerous issues that we've discussed with the department. And they have been working on that to try to help us with that. But at this point, it's not working.
Madam Chairman,
Please.
and I think this has been going on for quite some time. I've been getting calls as well, notification that this is information that they need.
We have, volunteers who are very frustrated. They are concerned about not being able to do their job, but they're also concerned about the children.
We would copy FCRB so they would get specific documents that they needed to be successful.
So it's not working. The bottom line is that, even if we do have some documents, it's not the complete array of documents that volunteers need, so there aren't quality reviews being done.
We would copy FCRB so they would get specific documents that they needed to be successful.
So a quality review would be that our board members have the documentation that they need. They review that prior to the review date. They come in to the review. They have thoroughly reviewed everything in their packet. Then they have all the interested parties in front of them. So ideally, the case manager. Sometimes case managers, we allow them to come on the phone too. This was pre-COVID. Now we're doing it virtually via Zoom. Like I said, biological parents who, by the way, because we're not getting that information, we are not even inviting everyone because some information is missing. So there are reviews that are being held without having invited the biological parents or the foster parents. So, but in a quality review, they would have all gotten their notices, and those who want to appear will come. Not always do they all appear, but generally they do. And then the board allows them to make statements similar to what we're doing here. And everyone speaks to the board. And then the board can ask them questions. And then they consider what it is that they've read ahead of time. They have questions that they may have from those documents. They have questions based on what's presented to them. And at the end of the review, they make recommendations, and those recommendations to go to the juvenile court so that the court can make orders.
We would copy FCRB so they would get specific documents that they needed to be successful.
The recommendations are made and then sent to the court so that the court can actually ask those questions as well in court and make the appropriate orders. But, we continue talking to our volunteers saying, you're just as important now as you were before. And in those recommendation reports to the court, you need to let them know that this wasn't a full review, that you didn't have all the information.
So we had a disclosure process where we would copy them as we disclosed information to the court. We would copy FCRB so they would get specific documents that they needed to be successful.
And we're also hearing from the courts that they're not getting all the information they need either. Because this isn't just an FCRB issue, it's a system-wide issue.
So we had a disclosure process where we would copy them as we disclosed information to the court. We would copy FCRB so they would get specific documents that they needed to be successful.
If we're not getting the reports, the courts aren't getting them either.
The greatest frustration we have is not having the information we need.
We would copy FCRB so they would get specific documents that they needed to be successful.
And we do have an effect on that child's life. The other part of this is the time thing, okay? If this has been going on for a year, in some cases then that's 20, 25, 15% of a child's life that we haven't had the information we need to do a proper review.
We would copy FCRB so they would get specific documents that they needed to be successful.
Madam Chairman,
Senator Griffin.
this is really an important link. The proper review, and in some cases I understand that the information that's incorrect is wrong addresses, and they have to forward the information, and by the time they get the forwarded information, the hearing's already done, and the biological parent doesn't get an opportunity to show up and make their case. And the court doesn't have the proper information making decisions on the lack of information they have. So this really is an important link of what we're looking at. So I'm really concerned about this.
By the time has elapsed for that particular review, we are still making phone calls trying to reach somebody that's got that information. And so we may have to move on and not have the information we need to pass along to the judge who has declared that child dependent. I mean, there's only one thing worse the state can do than take your children, and that's take your life. And so those people who have their kids in foster care deserve the opportunity to be heard, and we deserve the opportunity to do a proper review. That's a part of the state statutes too, is that we are commanded to do that. We volunteer to do it, and we are more than willing, but we've got to have the tools.
We would copy FCRB so they would get specific documents that they needed to be successful.
We are a part of the judiciary, okay? Mm-hmm. They are a part of the executive. Y'all are a part of the legislative. And so our reports go directly to the people who appoint us, who are in the judiciary. So they will go to that particular juvenile court judge in whatever district we are, okay, whether in Maricopa, Pima, Yavapai, so on.
Thank you.
So it's all direct there. So we get our information from our side, but we can't get the executive part.
So once the legislation was changed last year, DCS created this process for us. So there is a process in place now, but it's not working. What has happened since the legislation is that a process has been developed. It's a cumbersome process, but it's there, and it's just not working.
So we had a disclosure process where we would copy them as we disclosed information to the court. We would copy FCRB so they would get specific documents that they needed to be successful.
Not only do they need to contact with DCS, but that biological parent needs to be informed as to when their meeting is, and to be able to show up. And if they don't have the correct phone number or address, they don't show up, and it's a negative to the parent. Why didn't you show up? Well, I didn't have the information. I didn't know. And this could make the difference between, getting your child back or your children back or not. And so, it's all of the above.
So, Madam Chair, Representative Griffin, that's exactly right. So, hand in hand with the case manager appearing, if we could have at least the most updated information regarding placements, we could contact them.
So we had a disclosure process where we would copy them as we disclosed information to the court. We would copy FCRB so they would get specific documents that they needed to be successful.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Caroline. I don't know if you can quantify this, but is there a way to quantify how many review boards are meeting and how often they just do not have the information that they need to make a solid recommendation? I mean, I'm sure everyone is missing something, but how many of them are missing so much that it's just, you cannot make a solid recommendation?
Madam Chair, Representative Butler, we looked at 2 days' worth of reviews earlier this week just to get an estimate. So this is not a scientific number. But of those reviews, we looked at 11 cases. No, I'm sorry, 11 reviews. 11 reviews. And of those, 47% of them did not have a case plan.
So we had a disclosure process where we would copy them as we disclosed information to the court. We would copy FCRB so they would get specific documents that they needed to be successful.